Alrighty, hi everyone. I hope you guys are doing well. Thank you for joining me today. I might have to restart my computer, so I may have to go and come back. I'm not like 100% sure, but we'll see what happens. We'll kind of go with the flow and see what happens. Um, oh, whoops. There we go. Um, co-host in the background, can you hear me okay? Because I do see that my bubbles are going, but kind of stopping and coming and going. So I just want to make sure that's okay. Um, I don't know about y'all, but I'm hot. I'm hot, hot, hot. It's a heat advisory here where I'm at in Michigan, just south of Detroit. I don't know where you all are at, but that's where I'm at. Um, so all my equipment is kind of hot, 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 just like I am right now. But that's okay. That's what we're at in summer. We're in July. We're almost in July, y'all. And yes, I'm tired, so my southern accent's gonna come out. Woohoo! Damn! And I'm in a crazy mood, so you guys get to deal with my craziness today. So, so to start off with, I just have a couple of household items to take care of. First of all, you know the drill. Everything is listed in the description box below. Is the We're Not Done Yet podcast channel, the Season Circle channel, and I also included the link for the newest episode of the We're Not Done Yet podcast with MicheleLee and MicheleLee, and then they had the wonderful Christian Chenoweth, whom I love to pieces. She is a little cutie patootie, and it is a known fact that Miss Dolly Parton has always said that she wanted Kristen Chenoweth to play her in a movie or in her play. I don't know if she's gonna be on in the Dolly Parton musical. I don't know if that's been announced. If they have Dolly Parton cast yet, I'm not sure if it's gonna be Kristen Chenoweth or not. But I know that Dolly Parton had said that she wanted Kristen to play her. And she, like I said, she's a little cutie patootie. I remember she was in a show that I used to watch that I think it only lasted for like one or two seasons, and I forget the name of it. I would have to look it up. But she's an amazing actress and Broadway star, and in her own right. So it's only fitting that she joined the podcast and talks about what's going on in her life. I didn't get to watch it because I wanted to watch my episodes because of yesterday, and there was a lot going on with work. I couldn't really watch my episodes until this morning, so I didn't get a chance to watch the podcast that this morning. I don't know, co-host in the background, if you got to watch it, but it is up and live on their YouTube channel, and if you didn't, the link is in the description box below, so you can go check that out after we're done here. So, and again, the We're Not Done Yet podcast is linked, the Season Circle channel is linked, and then also the current episode of the We're Not Done Yet podcast, which I will be including on every episode on Tuesdays, just so that we can get the word out there. I hope that the ladies of the podcast are happy or are not now that I'm doing that. Also, I'm going to talk my throat dry because, again, it's hot here in Michigan. Whew, so hot, so hot. So I'll probably talk my throat dry just like Kathy from Gossip Rumor and the window. And again, go if you're into true crime, but you don't want all the gore and everything like that, go check out her channel. I'll put her channel in the description box below as well. Because I did tell her that I have been using some of her things. So I think it's only fitting that I add her that I add our channel into the description box below. So Cassie from Gossip Room and the Window, go check her out. She's a gossip on the internet. She talks about true crime, but she does it as a way of person who's just gossiping about it. She says that she's all about the facts, not effortlessly to us, but effort to us. So putting her channel in the description box below after this episode. Okay. So again, we're gonna do 2 episodes. Again and again, we're gonna do this through season 3 and through season 4. We're only gonna do 1 episode each live because there's a lot more meat into season 4 and co-hosts in the background. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. That I feel like that there's a lot more meat. That there's a lot more meat. And starting in season 4 with the Karen and Mac of it all, and then also with the Karen and Mac of it all, and then with everything that happened after Seth's passing, and then, like I said, there's a lot more behind the scenes that I can get from those episodes because I do my own research on those episodes just because of the emotions that I get whenever I do start season 4 over again. So I just always kind of Google like my thoughts and see what comes up, and usually I'm 100% right, and I just got a lot of behind the scenes. So I will be taking more. Those episodes will be more structured, and I may even have clips that maybe I can pull up. Maybe from other YouTube channels, and then I'll just link their YouTube channels in the description box below. Then that way I can figure out how to do all that. But I gotta play around with StreamYard and figure all that out because this is this is new for me. So we're kind of. I think the last episode was a Lily May episode where Lily May came, and so it's almost fitting that I think that they brought in this episode, which is Home is for Healing. And this is the episode where Lucy ends up coming to try to stay with Gary and Val for a week. But we'll get into all that and how that happens. So I think that this is a really good follow-up episode to when Lily May can co-host in the background. Are you there? So, because I'm not sure who the second person is watching this, so I just didn't know if that's true, because I do have my own YouTube up. So anyway, so with this episode, Home is for Healing. We open with Gary and Val in their bedroom, and then Val comes out of the bathroom and then looks at Gary, and then she goes back into the bathroom and changes into a different nightgown. And then she comes out, shows Gary, and was like, "Well, what are you doing?" And Gary's like, "Well, why did you change?" And Karen and Val said, "Well, Karen tossed me into buying that nightgown," and Gary was like, "Oh, I like that nightgown. It's fine, no worries." But then Val kind of sees that he really wasn't used to seeing her like that, so she goes back into the bathroom and changes back into the nightgown that she had on before, and she walks back out and she says, "Is this better?" And then she gets into bed, and then they start moving out. Then the phone rings, and it's from Dallas, which is Bobby. And Bobby tells Gary that Lucy accidentally found out about the fact that that Gary and Val are married, and she was very, very upset. And Val doesn't know that that was the conversation going on, but then Gary told Bobby to hold on, and that's when Gary tells Val what was going on, and then Val takes the phone from Gary and tells Bobby that she's going to go to Dallas to go talk to Lucy and make sure that she's okay, and maybe even bring her back to NotsLanding with her, just stay with them for a little bit. Let's see. Um, and then Gary wants to go with Val, but Val says no, that she feels like it's better if she goes on her own because she feels like that, Gary wasn't really there for her like Val was when Lucy was growing up, Val, even though that Val lost Lucy as a baby, I guess Val always tried to come back into her life. And I guess Gary always, Gary wasn't really a huge part of that. So that bond between Lucy and Val is very strong, to whereas the bond between Gary and Lucy is not. And then the night is ruined. The next scene is Val in Dallas, and she sees Lucy um, walking from class with a couple of her friends, and then they're talking about class and studying and biology and how everything is going on. And then, however, Lucy stops dead in her tracks and sees her mama, and you can tell that Lucy is not happy to see her. And it's almost like when Lily May came to see Val, and Val wasn't happy to see Lily May. So it's kind of like I said, this is kind of like a good follow up to that episode, to where it, like kind of like what I talked about in the last episode, where everything comes full circle. So if you think about it, Lily May and Val need to work out their relationship, and they started to repair their relationship. But now that Lucy knows about the marriage, Lucy and Val need to repair their relationship and kind of get that full circle moment. So I think that that's very beautiful, and how this episode is going to play out eventually. Um, so Val tells Lucy that she wants to tell her why she didn't I'm not sure. Sorry, bear with me. I'm just messaging the co-host in the background. So Val and Lucy start to talk about um why they didn't tell her about the marriage, and then Lucy starts crying and falls into her arms. Then we see the next scene, we see Gary sitting at his desk waiting for a phone call from Val. Karen walks into the KnotsLanding motive, and I think this is the first or second time that we actually see KnotsLanding motive. I'm not like 100% sure. So Karen walks in, she sees Gary, knocks on the window, and Gary is very distracted, and uh, Gary doesn't really greet her, and so Karen goes, "Oh, I'm fine, thanks. How are you?" Okay, good. Um, and then Karen starts talking to Gary, and Gary tells her where Val is because I guess Val and Karen have plans to do something, and that's when Gary tells Karen that Val went to Dallas to get Lucy. Um, and then Sid walks out, and then back into the shop. And I guess I didn't write this down because I didn't know it at the time. So we went back in the back to kind of change clothes so that he and Karen could go out to lunch because he didn't want to wear his overalls, or his work clothes to lunch with Karen. And then Karen asked Gary why he didn't go to Dallas with Val, and he said it's because that Val thought it was better that she went alone to get Lucy. And then Sid walks back into the shop and asks Gary if they want them to bring him back from lunch, and he says no, that's okay. And Gary did say to Karen that he really never had a good relationship with Lucy, and he also told her that Val might bring Lucy back. And then the phone rings, but it wasn't Val, it was a customer. And then that's when Sid and Karen leave to go to lunch. Gary is still waiting for the phone call. And then we're back in Texas, and Val and Lucy talk about why the situation happened the way it did, and the fact that they didn't want to let her know that they were back together and that they were living together because they weren't sure if it was going to work out. And I think at this point they're still working on their marriage, but they're just still not sure if it's going to work out. They wanted to, and they're very vulnerable, and we'll learn a little bit more about that in the next um in a couple of scenes. Um, just bear with me. And yeah, Lucy is not sure about her dad because she just never felt like a real connection, and that kind of makes me sad. But I kind of get it because Gary did have some issues in the past with alcoholism and all that stuff, and you know I don't know if I talked about it in my episode of my grief and everything that I've been through, but my dad was a closet alcoholic, and we'll talk a little bit more as to where I can relate to Gary more so with that as well. So we'll talk about that when we get to those couple of episodes. And so Lucy is always saying that her dad is losing her, who's lost her mom, and she just doesn't really see that they have a good relationship in the future. She wants it, but I don't think that she feels like she can have it. Val asked Lucy to come home with her, and then I guess Lucy said okay, and Val calls Gary, and they are coming back to KnotsLanding. And then Sid walks up on Gary and says, "Well, I hope that's Val that you were talking to." And Gary's like, "Yes," and they are and Val's coming home, and she's bringing Lucy with them. And Gary and Sid talk about being a father, and Sid is once again kind of clueless with this because again, he doesn't know the background really of what happened with Lucy, so he's just kind of like, it's like, you have to be a dad, and he said that when his daughter came, he wasn't a dad, he was just trying to be her friend instead of in that very first episode. She was just trying to be her friend, but what she really wanted was a father figure, and it was just kind of hard for them to find that footing with her being a father. And I do have a fan going on in the background, and that's just because, like I said, it's very hot here. So if you hear that, that's why I need to have it on. Otherwise, it's not going to be good. And then also, Gary picks Lucy and Val up from the airport, and Gary asks Val if she wants to make a stop, and Lucy and Val says, "Yeah," and Lucy goes, "Well, where?" And she goes, "It's a surprise. I want to take you to the beach." And Lucy says, "No, that's not where I want to go." She goes, "I want to go home." So that's kind of sweet how she's already thinking of it as her home. But I think that even looking at Lucy and that scene, I think that she knew that KnotsLanding was never going to really be her home, as she's always a Texas girl. She's always going to want to be in Texas. I just think that she just had that dream. But it would be a nice place for her to visit and be with her parents, during the summertime and all that. But I think Texas was always Lucy's home, no matter what. I couldn't foresee them taking Charlene Tilton away from Dallas and putting her on that friend, and I don't think that would have worked out well for either show. I think it would have been put a huge wrinkle in both shows. I just didn't think that was going to be a plan, knowing what I know now. And then we see that Ginger comes home from work and sees Karen pulling flowers for Lucy, and then Diana walks out with vases. However, it's not the vase that Karen wants, and so Karen and Diana have like a back and forth about the vases, and then it was decided that we'll have two vases. So then Diana stays, picks some more flowers, put them in the vase, and then Ginger tells Karen that she took her advice about talking to Kenny about all these parties that they go to and that they're having, and that they're gonna, spend the next night, on the beach. And I think it was the beach, get pizza, and then go to the beach, go to the movies, get a pizza, and then go to the beach. Um, and then Karen asks, and then Diana walks up with her flowers, and Karen goes, "How come your flowers look better than mine?" She goes, "Well, I don't know. I'm just more creative." And Diana asks Karen, "Well, do you want me to redo your flowers?" And she goes, "Well, you better. Otherwise, I'm gonna redo yours to make them worse than to make them look as plain as mine, or something like that." Which I think is kind of funny. This is just the Karen and Diana relationship that I think is kind of fun. This is before everything happened. Um, and then Gary, Lucy, and Val pull up, and Karen's, I think it's Karen or Ginger, I'm not sure which one, but one of them says that they do look like sisters, and then I think either Diana or Karen or even Ginger both said, "Well, that's what happens when you have a baby so young, that they do look like sisters." So that's kind of sweet. And then, Karen offers Diana to help show Lucy around, and Diana talks to Lucy about going and protesting. And then Lucy is like, "Well, how come you're going to protest?" And she goes, "Because," Diana goes, "because it's student." However, Karen has another idea, and they talk about going to Maroon Land. And Lucy said, "Oh, well, that sounds like fun." And it's going to be like the Ubers, the Fairgates, and now the Ewings are all going to go. Well, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then they talk about, and then as Karen and Diana walk away back to their house, they talk about Maroon Land and the fact that, that Karen wants Diana to go to help be there for Lucy, because they're about the same age. I think Diana, and this episode is about 15, and I think Lucy is 18. So I think that, Karen is just trying to see if, they can become friends. So, and then, so then we go back to Val and Gary's house, and they show Lucy the room, and Lucy loves it. Lucy picks up everything in the room and goes and says, "Oh, Mama, Mama," but she never mentions her dad. And this is when you can see that Gary, excuse me, that Gary is kind of starting to feel left out. And then he leaves to call his mom to tell her that Lucy is all set. And then Lucy gives Val a tap, and Val says she feels at home now, and that now that Lucy is with them. And then this makes Gary feel bad. And then the next thing you see, um, and this is where I feel bad for Gary, because it is breaking his heart that he doesn't have the type of relationship that um, that Val and Lucy have. And that usually a mother and daughter's relationship, depending on the situation, usually they're a little bit more closer than a father and daughter. But I was the opposite, even though that we went through a hard time with my dad. Even though that we went through, I'm stopping because I see that the banner and then the bubbles are not popping up, so I'm just making sure. Okay, I'm gonna have to restart, but we'll see. Um, so Gary does feel kind of bad about, and I think he's feeling bad because of the lack of time that he spent with Lucy when she was growing up, and everything that he put them through. Um, I love the connection that Val and Lucy have, but Val needs to let Gary in a little bit more so that they can become more of a have a better relationship. And that's where I kind of kind of mad, not mad, but frustrated with Val because she's not letting Gary in. It's almost like that her and Lucy have a secret club, and I guess co-hosts in the background can tell me if I'm wrong or not. But it just feels like Val thinks that they have a good that it's like a little club that they have. Um, Next, we see Gary going for a walk, and Karen passes in her car and asks him why he is walking. And Gary goes, he needs to get things out of the system. Um, and Karen says, well, no one walks in Southern California. And he goes, well, maybe so, but it's hard to get the Texas out of me. I still got Texas in me. And I got a little clip about that in the next episode. So we'll talk about that when I get there. Um, and I love the friendship that Karen and Gary are forming. So it's not just a friendship with Karen and Val, but it's also the friendship with Karen and Gary that I love so much because that'll come into play in later seasons, even though they do go through hard times. It'll play into the later seasons, and you can tell that Karen really just has a fondness for both Gary and Val, and not just Val. It's almost like Karen is like a mother figure for Val. I think she just feels like she has to take her under her wing, and look after her and protect her, all that good stuff. That's just me. And Karen asks Gary how's it going, and she notices that he is having a hard time. And this is where classic Karen is, and she says, as Gary is walking away, and goes, "Hey, Ewan, get back here." She encourages Gary, and Gary says thanks, and Karen is that what? Thanks for the push, or thanks for the talk? And he goes, just thanks. And as Gary walks away, you can tell that Karen is disappointed because she thought that maybe she could have gotten through to him. Co-host in the background, can you hear me okay? Because I am talking a little bit lower, and I think it's because of the allergies, um, and I'm kind of tired today. So just let me know if you can hear me okay. Um, the next scene is we see Lucy talking to her grandmother on the phone and telling her that everything is going. Next scene, we see Lucy talking on the phone to her grandmother, and she's saying that everything is going okay. And then Gary walks out, and then Val, and then they start talking about Lucy. Oh, I was just saying, is my voice too low? Like, can you hear me okay? Um, and so Gary and Val are talking about Lucy, and how it seems so easy for Val, and it's not easy for Gary. And then Gary is saying that Val says that she needs to give it some time. And then Lucy comes out while Val and Gary are kissing. And then Lucy sits down, and then Lucy, Kenny, and Ginger walks up, and Kenny pulls up, and then they say, "Oh well, we want Ginger to bring Kenny over so he can meet Lucy." Um, um, and Val notices that there is something bothering both of them, both Lucy and Gary. And then Val tells Gary to give it some time, and that the distance is noticeable. I can see that the distance is noticeable. And then this is when they start to kiss, and then Lucy comes out and sits down. Ginger and Kenny walk up, and then he goes, "Just a bunch of Texans sitting on the porch." um, as Kenny walks up. Kenny is impressed by Lucy, And then Kenny invites them all to a party at their house, and Ginger is not too happy about this because and you can tell we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. However, Lucy declines because she wants to go to Marineland to be with her mother. Notice she didn't say her father, but her mother. And Lucy goes, and then Lucy, after Kenny and Ginger leave, Lucy goes upstairs to take a bath and to go to bed. And then Gary does suggest to Val that maybe she should go to the party. And Val was like, well, why? She just wants to be with us. And I think Gary notices that no, she just wants to be with Lou. She doesn't want to be with me. She just wants to be with Lou. And then now, this is where we're starting to see more of Kenny and Ginger. Ward, I finally learned their last name. Yay, I'm so excited. Ginger wants to talk to Kenny about the party because she thought that they were going to spend some time alone the next night. And then, which was Karen's advice that they do because they wanted, Ginger wanted to spend some time with him. And then, and Ginger does not want the party because she doesn't like the way that she is treated, while the party is going on by other musicians. And then, so then they start to fight. And Ginger tells Kenny what she wants over and over again, and Kenny just ignores her. The next we see that Lucy, Val, and Gary are in the Ewing living room, and then we see that Lucy went shopping, and Gary is not happy because Gary finds out that Lucy used her credit cards, which is, his dad's money, and this is kind of where Lucy and Gary come head to head, and and that, he's just not happy about that. And then Lucy finally lets out how she is feeling about Gary and his lessons that, he is trying to instill on her, and says, I'm not a baby anymore, you don't have to talk to me like this, and you weren't there for me when I was 3 and 4 years old to teach you these lessons. And then Gary and Val talk about breaking the habits gradually, and the fact how Gary was a little bit harsh on Lucy and all that stuff, because Val was just trying to make sure that Lucy is comfortable. And then Gary goes upstairs to talk to her. Lucy is really upset, but she doesn't want to talk and asks him to leave because, she's kind of mad at him. And then you can tell that she's going to start crying. And then the next thing you see that Kenny is getting ready for the party, and Ginger does not want the party and walks out. She basically said, I don't know anything about no party. So Ginger leaves the house, and then she is upset, and Kenny continues to get ready for the party in spite of what Ginger says. And then we see the next scene, we see Lucy come downstairs in a dress, and she tells Val that she is going to go to Kenny's party. However, Val really wanted her to go to Marineland. And Lucy was like, well, I don't think that's such a good idea because, Gary, her dad doesn't really want her to do that, to be with her. And then, however, at this point, this is kind of where we see that Val was starting to blame Gary. So then we're at Kenny and Ginger's. The party starts, and Lucy is making new friends, which happens to be. I found out later in the episode that it's actually that band that Kenny is hosting the party for. And then, so she's making friends. And then we see that Kenny is flirting with another woman who is a singer. And we later learn that they end up having an affair. And then Richard walks in after Marineland. Richard sees Lucy, and then Karen instead comes to the party and asks, well, why are we here? And I think it's because maybe, I'm thinking that it's because someone asked them to look after Lucy at the party just to keep an eye on her. So, and that's my guess. So then Lucy and friends leave for another party. And I think, like I said, I think Richard was there to keep an eye on Lucy. And then Richard does introduce himself to her. And as she's walking out, or as she's leaking out the door, Val and Gary are talking about the situation. And he feels so left out, and you can tell. And this just breaks my heart. And then we see that Gary goes to the party, however, does not know that Lucy left yet. We then see the woman Kenny is. Yeah, Lucy was being Lucy, right, co-host in the background. Um, which, she is 18 years old. I mean, come on. And I kind of get what Gary's going to say here in a minute, but Lucy is 18 years old, no one can really control her at that point, no matter what. Um, so Gary doesn't know that Lucy left, and we then see the woman that Kenny is flirting with singing, and Kenny is also trying to look for Ginger by calling her on the phone. And then the singer talks to Kenny, and then Sid and Karen leave, and then after Kenny rejects the singer, Sid hits on her. Not Sid, but oh wow, no, not Sid. Sid would never do that. Richard hits on her, not Sid, Richard. And then she declines. And then we see that Ginger returns and goes to her room to find people in her room on her bed. If you know, you know. Gary walks in and asks where Lucy is, and then when Gary finds out that Lucy left, Gary yells at Kenny, and then Ginger yells at Kenny. So poor Kenny, he's just getting yelled at by everyone tonight. He's just like taking the brunt of everything. First, the singer wants to sleep with him, then Gary yells at him, and then Ginger yells at him. He's just not having a good night. Poor Kenny. Instead of poor Val, poor Kenny. And then Ginger is mad because they did have plans and Kenny just blew them off. And then Kenny makes an offer. However, Ginger knows that the event that he has to go to the next night is a work event, and so she doesn't want to ask for him to give that up. And then they start to make out, and I think that we can all imply what happens at that point, even though that there's a house full of people, which hey, to each his own. And then it's the next morning, I know, poor Kenny. And then the next morning, a limo pulls up and drops Lucy off at home. Gary thinks that, I know, bad Kenny. But he does redeem himself, and we'll talk a little bit about that, once we get there. Gary wakes Val up, and then as Lucy comes home, and then Gary is yelling at Lucy, and Lucy says that they are gonna be together. Let's just be honest about that. And then Lucy in her room, she starts packing, and then Val comes in, and Lucy tells Val that it's too late, and then she asks Val to go back to Dallas with her. And Lucy is saying that Gary is always leaving, and Lucy doesn't want to lose Val at this point. So she feels like if Val doesn't go with her to Dallas, then she's gonna lose her mama, and then in turn, Val feels that if she doesn't go to Dallas, she's gonna lose Lucy. So they have a very codependent relationship. I think it's very codependent, and I think that goes to the fact that Val was so young when she had Lucy. And if you think about it, it's just like the Gilmore Girls. Laura White had Rory when she was a teen, so it's kind of very similar in that aspect to where even though Val didn't really raise Lucy, it's still that codependency of it all, and the fact that Val did see Lucy on a regular basis. So it's kind of like they're almost like friends before they're mother and daughter. And now that, like I said, Lucy is 18 years old, so therefore she's no longer a child, and so therefore their relationship should be more like friends instead of mothers and daughter. And then Gary tells Val that it does not make sense. Well, now we're into Val and Gary's bedroom, and Gary tells Val that it doesn't make sense for her, and we're almost done with this episode, I'm glad. Doesn't make sense for her to go to Dallas. However, this is when Val tells Gary that, she has to go, because if she doesn't go, then she feels like she's gonna lose Lucy. And, like I said, this is kind of gonna play into episodes a lot later, to where we do see that breakdown. We don't see Lucy after this episode. Well, we don't see Lucy with her mom after this episode. We do see Lucy with her dad in Dallas later on, after Jack dies and the will is read. I think that when I get to those episodes, I'm going to see if I can find the episode of Dallas of where Gary goes to Dallas, and then there's a whole full circle moment at that point, because I think that Val and Gary are not together at that point. So therefore, there's that of it all, and so we don't necessarily see Val and Lucy together after this episode. So it's going to be very interesting. And so Gary does think that Val is actually leaving him, because she's going to Dallas for an undetermined amount of time. And so that is making Gary frustrated. And Val, like I said, Val thinks that, she's going to lose her. And then we finally see Laura. We haven't seen Laura this whole episode. Wow. Goodness gracious. I think the writers have always wanted to make Val and Gary and Karen and Sid at the time. They wanted to make them the focus of the cul-de-sac. Like I said, it's a friendship of the Karen and Mac of it. Not Karen and Mac. No, Melinda, no, not Karen and Mac. It's Karen and Val. Their friendship. They wanted to make that the focus of the show. I know, co-host in the background. I know. That's the Karen and Mac of it all, but we're not there yet. So Karen wants, and they just wanted to make them the focus of the show, and then have, and even Richard. I think Richard has an even bigger part, so it's gonna be. So I think they wanted to make the focus of the show Karen and Sid, Gary and Val, and then Richard, and then the other background characters are Laura, which in later seasons Laura becomes more of the focus, and then Kenny and Ginger, which I think Kenny and Ginger do have some great storylines, but they're kind of always in the background. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And I don't know, co-host in the background, if you see that, but that's how I see it, to where it's like, those three characters are kind of like more so in the background at that point, to where they'll come more out. But I think Kenny and Ginger will have more storylines, but again, they're more of a supporting cast members rather than, actual stars of the show. And I think that comes into play even more so after Kevin Dobson arrives, because of the Karen and Mac of it all. I think that they really take up after that show, after Kevin Dobson arrives. They're the main focus of the show, except for one plot line, but for the most part, it is the Karen and Mac of it all, from season 4 on out. So Laura, we finally see Laura, and then she meets Lucy, and then Lucy and Laura talk. It's Laura talking to Lucy about their relationship. Am I right about that, co-host in the background, that like once Kevin Dobson arrived, it was just a Kevin and Michelle show at that point? I just think that the other characters were just supporting characters, and Val, and JoanVanArk as well. But I think that it's mostly about Karen and Mac because they kind of tied everyone together because people left the cul-de-sac. I mean, so Karen just was a tie to everyone, You think about it, Karen was a tie to Abby, who left the cul-de-sac. Karen was a tie to Gary, who was no longer in the cul-de-sac. So I just think that, as the show progressed, it just became the Karen and Mac show, in my opinion. Um, and again, except for the twin storyline. Um, so then Laura's telling Lucy about how, it's then for Gary and Val since they arrived and how much that they love each other and how much that they're protective of each other and how much that they talk about Lucy. Lucy wasn't aware of all this and I think that Lucy is starting to have like second thoughts about all of this. And then you know, then Val comes out and then she talks to Laura and then she kind of tells Laura goodbye without telling Laura goodbye. And she tells Laura that she's going to go to Texas to help Lucy to take Lucy home, but she doesn't know how long she's going to be for. And then Val just gives her a hug and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry about everything." And but the one thing that I don't get is how come she didn't say goodbye to Karen. That's the one piece of this of it all for me, is that with Val and Karen being so close, why didn't they show Val saying goodbye to Karen? But I guess they needed to have Laura in the scene, so maybe that's why. But I just, again, I think I'm not write an extra scene to this episode because I feel that Val and Karen should have said goodbye to one another. Just my opinion. Um, so then Val gets in the car with Lucy, and then they drive off. Or no, Gary tells Val, "Don't leave me. Don't leave me." And Val says, "I'm so sorry, Gary, because I love you so much, and I don't want to, but I feel like I have to." And so then they drive off, and then Laura asks Gary if he is okay, and he says, "I don't think so." Then Val takes, and then they start walking. I don't know if they start walking to the fairgrounds, but kind of looking like like very. I just combined Laura and Gary together. Not no. It's Laura and Gary. It looks like that they're gonna walk to the fairgrounds, and they're gonna just kind of talk to Karen. Um, and then the next thing we see that Val takes Lucy to the beach before they leave on their trip, and then they talk about how how the fact that why that they're going to the beach so that Lucy can see it before she goes back home. And then Lucy, that they are walking to the fairgrounds because then we see that Gary goes into the garage to talk to Sid. I like a good scene talking in the garage. And this is kind of where I think Sid has a little bit of redeeming quality. Again, he's becoming more and more of a protector and gives good advice. Um, and Gary tells Sid how he's tried to be a father, and that Gary, and then Sid asks, "Well, did you ever apologize? Did you ever own up to what happened in the past?" And Gary said no, that he did not open up and own his own mistakes. And said, "Goes, well, that's where you went wrong. You went in trying to be a father, but then you never apologized or owned up to your mistakes." And then Sid, this is where I think he gets a redeeming quality. Sid encouraged him to go after Lucy and to own up to his mistakes because that's the only way that they're going to have a relationship. And then Lucy and Val talking about the fact that Val needs to stay with Gary and her friends, and the fact that she does love her husband, and that she needs to be with him, and the fact that Gary loves her as well, and Gary loves both of them. Um, and then Val tries to tell Lucy that Gary has been through a lot and that she needs to give him time. And then all of a sudden we see that Gary is running up to them and makes up with Lucy, and Lucy says, I'm so happy, I'm so glad, and I agree with you that we didn't get a chance to get to know each other. Instead, we kind of just jumped into all three of us kind of jumped into this thinking that we all had to make it okay, but we just couldn't make it okay without getting to know one another as adults and then as friends. And Gary says, no, instead of saying, don't use your credit cards, I should have said, please don't use your credit cards. And that's when Lucy smiles. And then Gary and Val encourage Lucy to stay, and Lucy agrees for the week. And then Val wants Lucy to run in the ocean, and Lucy's like, no, it's cold. And so then finally, Val runs off into the ocean, well, on the shoreline of the ocean to run in the water with her knees up to water. And then Gary takes off his shoes and socks and holds out his hand and says, come on, honey, let's go. And then Lucy takes his hand, and then Lucy, at the end of the episode, this is the end of the episode, that all three of them are holding hands with Lucy in the middle, running down the beach. And I think that is such a sweet ending of that episode. So I think the moral, like I said, the moral of this episode is how everything comes full circle. You know, Lily, May, and Val had to grow up and become friends and repair their relationship, and it's in the same episode that, you know, in this episode where Lucy and Val had to do the same thing, and how Gary had to come and find his way into the episode as well. So I think that I don't really have to say a whole lot about this episode because I think I did talk about what I thought about it in the recap of it all. So co-host in the background, do you have any questions or concerns or thoughts or feelings or anything like that you want to add while I go to Twitter and add and get this up and running? Let me see. I have anything. No, that's not what I want to do. Let's see. There's a message. All right. But so, how do you think my analysis is good and correct and all that jazz? Oops. Yeah. Sorry. So my analysis is pretty good. So you guys, the clip that I'm gonna show, I'm gonna do a two-parter again. Because I think that we just need to talk. We just need to listen to how to these two clips. So let me. So we'll play the first the one soon, and then we'll go into the next soon. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and stop this because I'm going to stop that right there. With a circle, unbroken, by. Okay. Yes, I'm singing. Alright. So here we go. Here's the scene. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit because I know that the fan is on. Sorry about the scene, and I know I don't have a voice, but oh well. I just saw the title of episode 5, and it just kind of popped in my head. So sorry, co-host in the background, that we had to deal with that. All right. Excuse me. So here we go.
Back to that one. All right. Hi. Lucy get home okay? This morning. She's gone. Went back to Dallas. What? Guess I blew it. What do you mean? I tried to be a father, drove her away.
I love the fact that Sid is trying to help Gary and trying to do like an introduction to him and give him guidance into this. I just think that that is so beautiful and wonderful, and you can kind of see the relationship between Gary and Sid forming, and I think that that's also where I think that Sid is becoming a little bit of a better character at this point. And co-host in the background, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. Is like they're giving him more substance, and I think that we'll see that in the next episode as well. That he's starting to redeem himself, but then again, there's other episodes to where I think that you can be a jerk sometimes. But that's just my opinion, and again, that's the knack and caring of it all for me. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm playing this in accordance with YouTube service policies.
It's just too much to overcome. Yeah, but still, I should think that once you owned up to your mistakes, I didn't. You mean you just came on like a father without even...
Right there. That's where I think that's kind of redeems himself, where it's like, oh, you just did that just to, you know, without even owning up to the responsibilities? That's crazy. What are you thinking?
Talking about the past? I couldn't admit to that incredible weakness in me and expect her to see me in any other light. Gary, go after...
That is a father who really loves his daughter and his wife, who didn't want her to know what everything that he had been through. He didn't want to spoil, he didn't want to spoil her image of him. However, she did have a bad image of him. He just didn't know it, and he just, wanted to play the father figure right away, and so therefore he just didn't want to own it up. So, and again, I forgot to say this before I played the last clip. This is in accordance with YouTube service policies.
And fix it. It can't be fixed. Look, there comes a time when you have to realize the past is the past. Now, you can't forget it, but that doesn't mean you have to relive it. Now, you tell her that and just work things out from there.
I love that. I love that Sid told him that, just tell her how you feel and tell her, we can't go back in time. We can only move forward. And again, that's kind of like the Lily May and Val of it all. The kind of same situation with Lucy and Val. So I think Gary is finally realizing what happened there and what needs to be done. Oh, this is in accordance with YouTube service policy, and this is where we see Lucy and Val talk about what's going on in their minds.
Thinking or not thinking? Thinking, I guess. You tell me what you're thinking, I'll tell you what I'm thinking. Well, I shouldn't be going with you. Leaving your daddy. That's exactly what I was thinking.
I love that Lucy is coming to her senses about the fact that Val couldn't leave, and this is why I wanted to play this scene, because this just shows how everything comes full circle. So again, this is with YouTube service policies.
I'll always be your mama, forever. But me being mommy and you a little girl, that's gone. You're all grown now. Pretty soon you're going to start your own new family.
So again, that's kind of like how Lily and Val were the last episode. So it's kind of like a whole full circle moment. And I think that that's beautiful. What do you think, co-host in the background?
Daddy and me, we got
YouTube service policy in accordance with YouTube service policies.
together after so many years of wanting each other. It's almost a miracle we found each other again. Well, it wasn't exactly a miracle. I arranged it, remember? Yeah.
I forgot that part that Lucy. I remember that when I watched this, but I forgot that part until then, because I was like, because I hadn't seen Dallas in a minute, so I didn't really remember that it was actually Lucy, and I forgot how difficult of a time that was for Val and Gary.
Sure do. You see, this is hardest on your daddy. I mean, hard for him to deal with everything now because he's been through so much more than we have.
And here comes Gary. Now, see, this is kind of like where I feel like, with my parents, where I think that had my if my dad was still here when I think that they would have tried to work this out, but I think that my dad would have had to change his ways by quite a lot. And so this is where I can relate to Gary and him trying to stay sober and be a husband and be a father and be there for everyone. But we all know that that's not going to last. But this is kind of where I can feel for Gary, and I have love and sympathy and empathy for him, because he is trying, even though that is hard for him. Now, a little bit of background information that I found out while I was researching some of the episodes, some of the newer episodes, is that Ted Shackelford, the actor who played Gary, was actually a recovering alcoholic in real life, and he told the creators that of the show and the writers of the show, do not give him any alcohol, because if you do, it's gonna look a lot like Gary. He knows his limits. So I think that the actors, the directors, and the creators and the casting directors really put a good cast together for KnotsLanding, because if you think about it, a lot of what is going on in their life, they really incorporated into the show. Now, granted, Gary came off with Dallas, and that's when we learned that he was an alcoholic. But I didn't know that in real life that Ted Shackelford did deal with alcoholism, and that he was aware of the fact that he did not want any alcohol in his drinks on set or anything like that, because he knew how he would react. And I think that that's why he played the character so well. The fact that, he was playing it based off of his real life. And once we get to those episodes, we'll see that. And I will definitely make comparisons, not only I think it's within this season, and then within the seasons around with CG. Um, we'll talk a little bit about that. But co-host in the background, did you know about Ted Shackelford and the fact that he did battle alcoholism in real life, and that he did experience a lot of what Gary was experiencing when he was in alcohol, when he fell off the wagon, so to speak? And again, this is in accordance with YouTube's service policy.
I don't want you to go. No, just let me say this. I know I ran away from you and Mama a lot. I was weak. I let my brother and my father drive me away, and I ran. I was a drunk and a gambler and a loser. Well, I may not be all that terrific now, but I'm not a loser anymore. I'm working. I'm not drinking, and I'm not gambling.
And again, I know that I'm just using the audio of this, but you can tell how much Val really loves him in this moment, and she's just like looking at him like, oh my gosh, thank you, Gary, you're amazing, I love you, thank you. So, but that's just me. And again, this is within accordance with YouTube service policy.
And instead of running away from the important things, I try to run toward them. I may blow them every now and then, but at least I face, look them in the eye. Now, what happened the last couple of days was that we all had plans. You and Mama were going to be little girl and tender mother. I was going to be a father, capital F. Well,
a father, capital F, thanks to Sid's advice in the first couple of scenes. I think that that's funny that, he recognizes that, Sid kind of gave him that ideal, but without showing Sid under the bus. That's just kind of funny. Um, I just think that that's kind of funny. So, yeah, so that's just me. Oh my gosh, it's a lot. It's so hot. This is in accordance with YouTube service policies.
Yes, we just forgot to get to know each other.
Daddy,
I said no credit cards because using your grandfather's card. What I should have said was, please don't use the credit cards because it makes me feel bad.
I love that. I love the fact that he owned up to how he responded to using the credit cards. And the fact that what he should have said. I don't think that parents do this enough nowadays. I think that we're in a society now, and I guess I was wrong because now that I'm watching this clips, I do have a little bit more to say about this episode. But I think that we're in a society now to where gentle parenting is a huge thing, and I think that gentle parenting is not effective. And I think that while there is a time and place for it, I think that children need to have consequences. They need to be disciplined. They need to know what it's like to have people tell them no, that they can't do things, that they shouldn't do things. They need to have boundaries, and I think that in today's society with gentle parenting, there are no boundaries with children, and I think that that's why we're in where we're at right now with the fact that a lot of the I'm sorry, I had to move my legs, and my legs curled up, and I hurt my legs. Just bear with me so I can get comfortable again. So I think that that's, and again, I'm just going off of on the Generation X, well, on the cusp, at the tail end of Generation X. I was born in 1981, and I was not raised as a with gentle parenting, because both of my parents were in their 30s when they had me, so I wasn't a Lucy and Val situation. I was my mom was born in 48, I believe. So, I know she was born in November 2nd, but I don't know if it was 48. So, therefore, she was. Oh, well, I'll have to do the math because I just don't know. So, I was raised as parents who were born, who had parents from the Great Depression. So therefore, I really had parents that were technically that were raising Generation X, but I was born right on the cusp, and I was raised as a Generation X baby. So therefore, I consider myself Generation X, even though I graduated high school in 2000. I still identify, because of my background and everything like that, I still identify as Generation X. That's just me. And I think that that's why I get along with older adults, and I think that that's why I'm an old soul. I think that that's why, I can relate to certain things that other people my age can't. I'm halfway to 50 right now, so, I was raised with open hands. I wasn't ever, you know, I wasn't ever taken advantage of or anything like that, but I was raised with consequences, and I just think that that's what we're missing in today's society, and why this world is the way that it is right now. And co-host in the background, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just the way that I feel. The fact that, that this society today is a lot different, and I think that, and it's because of the way that children are being raised. Um, And that's just me. So you can take it or leave it, but that's just my opinion. Um, don't take everything I say as fact and do your own research, but that's how I feel. Okay, going on to things co-host in the background. Yeah, I just don't want to offend anyone, but again, this is yes, very different generation. I don't want to offend anyone, but that's just how I feel. And if you look at, you know, the work the work ethic of the generations, you can see okay in my mom's generation they have like high work ethic. And then you have my generation who also has a high work ethic, but we were raised with hose water, go outside and play, don't come inside unless you absolutely have to, drink water from a hose. Well, and okay, I was raised that way only during the summers that I could go outside because I did have a lot of surgery. So therefore, there's that too. But we had to go outside and play. We didn't have screens. We didn't have cable. We didn't have, well, eventually I did get cable, but I had friends that lived on the street. I would go to their houses. We would go, go to the elementary school because our elementary school was literally around the corner from our house. And then so we would go to our elementary school, hang out. I had, um, when we was in Southfield, our yard was so big that it backed up into a park. And so my dad would take me and my brother, we would walk through, 'cause our yard was fenced, but we would jump the fence. Yes, with my dad. My dad helped us. We would jump the fence, and then there was like a huge park that we went to every couple of weeks, and we would go and hang out there. My dad took us camping, fishing. I didn't like fishing, but I still had to go. we went, my dad had a cabin with a friend of his where he went hunting up in Houghton Lake, and we would go up there. My dad would just take a weekend to give my mom some alone time, and he would take my brother and I up camping, and it was like felt like we were back in the highways of Kentucky or West Virginia because it was so far out, and it was just a cabin. You had to light the furnace if it was during the wintertime. Um, and the roads were gravel, they were not smooth, they were like rocky. So I was raised in that time frame, so that's why I feel like I'm Generation X. And then you have today's, and even the millennials are raised differently. Like, it's very, very different than what it is today. So therefore, like I said, I'm not trying to knock anybody or offend anyone, but if you just do the research, you can see and tell the work ethic and the way that I think that kids today and young adults think that everything should be handed to them rather than working for it. So again, this is in accordance with YouTube's fair use policy.
Again,
What?
you were right. We forgot to get to know each other.
Stay, Lucy. Stay the way.
Hey, you know what I want to do now? I've been dreaming of doing this ever since we moved in here. What, Mama? Go running in the ocean with you. Well, we've been walking in it. No, I mean really in it. Up to your knees and run it. It's too cold. Oh, no, it isn't. Not.
I love that. She's like, oh, it's too cold. You can tell that Lucy hasn't seen the ocean. But really, she has. That Charlene Tilton really has seen the ocean because of where this was filmed. But yeah, so I think that this is just a sweet ending. I'm going to let it play out. And again, this is in accordance with YouTube service policy.
It's too cold.
Hey, it's only cold for a minute.
Okay, so there's no more talking after that, so I'm gonna stop this so I don't get hit with a copyright strike on the theme song from KnotsLanding. I don't want that. Um, but anyway, so yeah, so that's kind of like where I land on that episode. So I guess if co-hosts in the background, do you have anything to add? If not, I'm just gonna jump into the next episode, which is, oh, the next episode is really something. I'll tell you. It's really something. I don't know if you know what the next. Do you know what the next episode is? Co-host in the background. I don't know if you've been watching them as well. Yes, it's a different generation now. I don't know if you've been watching the episodes before I go live, but uh, let's see. Hold on. Speaking of my VFF. Okay. Have you been watching? Oh, okay. I know that scene is gorgeous, isn't it? It's like so beautiful, and it just brings everything together, and it like shows how Lucy, how it becomes full circle, right? Like this episode really does come. This this episode really does come full circle, and I think that that's beautiful because not only does it come full circle with this episode, but it also comes full circle from the last episode. And I'm pausing because again I'm seeing that my bubbles and my thing is kind of like stopping and going. So I'm just kind of making sure. Okay. Alright, so I just been messaging my friend here. Okay. Let me see. Okay, another message. Okay, I got a message. Oh. Aw. Okay. Anyways, I was just looking at something from. Yeah, everything's good. Okay, cool. Thanks. Alright, so now I'm gonna go and back into YouTube. I'm gonna turn this down because I don't want it to play loudly. Go back. Yeah. Okay. I'm live on YouTube. I'm live there. Okay. And then we'll do change this to all messages. Alright. Hold on. I'm gonna. Okay, just bear with me. Okay. So we are already we're halfway through, if not almost done with season 1. So we're on episode 7, and this is called Land of the Free. And this episode is a little bit more meatier than the last couple of episodes, if you can even get that way. But yes, I think this is when all the episodes that come after this has high intensity, and I think this is what started it off. I don't know, co-host in the background, maybe if we go, maybe once we get into it, you'll know what episode it is, and then maybe you can have some insight as to what you think about the fact that this episode really, I think, sets the bar to the high intense episodes that will be coming up later in this season as well as in the future seasons. So with this episode is called Land of the Free, and we open up with the kids and the women of the cul-de-sac at the beach. We see a lot of people, the camera pans around and people in the area on the beach. And again, Sid is really building up his character, and he has a bit more redeeming qualities, even more so in this episode than in the last episode. And then we do see Karen's children a lot more in this episode, which I'm glad. And that kind of establishes, I think, Michael's storyline coming up in the next couple of episodes. I'm not sure if it's the next one or the one after, or if it's near the end of the season. But it does gear up towards, I think, that episode to where we see Michael deal with a little bit um, more issues at the time. Um, okay, so then we are so then we go to Val and Karen. They're sitting on the beach, and Diana is playing volleyball while Eric and Michael are playing with their frisbee. And then Eric throws it, and then Eric goes, "Watch out, Mom!" And Michael almost crashes into Karen, and Karen tells him to go somewhere else and throw the frisbee, get it out of there, so that they don't hit Val and Karen. And then let's see. Okay. So this is kind of funny, and I think that maybe this is an ad lib, and I'm not 100% sure. But Diana's playing volleyball, and we see that her strip to her bathing suit is almost off her shoulder, and Karen goes, "Wow, I think if Diana has one more volley, she's gonna have basically she's gonna lose her top." And it's almost like a wardrobe malfunction. I don't know if that was written into the script. I haven't researched that, because then Karen calls out to Diana, and then all of a sudden Diana pulls it up and she smiles at Karen, and then you can kind of tell that Karen's laugh, and I think that was really Michelle laughing. So that's why I think that that's more of a ad lib and it wasn't supposed to happen, but they left it in the scene. Because then that, like I said, Karen and Val just kind of start cracking up, and it just seemed like a more genuine laugh from both characters. So I don't know if you've seen that episode yet, co-host in the background, but I think that that's kind of what happened. And if you go back and watch it, maybe you can let me know what you think about that scene, because I do think that that was an ad lib, and it wasn't written in the script. But like I said, I haven't researched it to ask to see if it was really an ad lib. Um, and then Karen says to Val, "It's D-Day," so she's trying to get Val into the water to dunk her, because as we learned in earlier episodes that Val doesn't know how to swim, so Karen wants to get Val in the water and dunk her because Val is the only one. Oh, okay. Yeah, I would go back and watch it, and then you can uh, see what scene I'm talking that scene, and see if it's something, and then maybe you can message me and let me know. Um, oh God, I'm sorry, my foot is just um. So so Karen takes her by the hand, starts running with her, and then we see that Laura and Ginger trying to assist her. However, there's a major clink in this part, because this is where a motorcycle gang and it interrupts everything. It interrupts the people, everybody on the beach. It interrupts them, and it interrupts the volleyball game. And then what they did is they kind of circled around the ladies once they came back into shore. They circled around the ladies and kind of targeted them. And then let me see here. Um, Karen tries to help. Karen and Laura's son tries to help Laura get away because she's being held back by one of the people in the game, and then Karen does top one of them, and they let go of and then he lets go of Laura and Laura's son, and then the guy says, "Hey, it's a free country, we can do whatever we want." and then he grabs Karen, and then Eric tries to protect her, and then the guy kind of takes Eric's head and kind of gets him off of him, um, fends off Eric basically, and then luckily one of the good guys, and I say that with good guys in quotes, because we find out later that he actually is not a good guy, says leave them alone, they don't want to play, and then they all walk away quickly. And then as they do, you can kind of see this in this scene. It kind of sets up Karen as the matriarch, not just of her family, but of the cul-de-sac. And I think that that's really telling that she is the matriarch. She is the matriarch of the cul-de-sac, and the fact that she wants to take care of everybody. She wants to make sure that everyone's okay, that they get fed. She's just the ultimate mom for everyone. Like, no matter if they're all the same age, like, they go beyond a friendship for Karen. It's like almost like a whole another family for her, and she wants to protect her family. And we saw that with her trying to help Laura go away. And then, and even with Abby, she does that with Abby in later episodes, and we'll see that as well, her and Abby don't get along. Um, but then as they do, Karen is in front of everyone and says motorcycles are not allowed on the beach. And that's kind of how she says it, but MicheleLee says it a lot better. Um, then Michael says something to him, yeah, just wait until the beach patrol comes by and they'll be by here shortly. And I thought that was really cute, that she was trying to this little guy was trying to stand up to him. And then the one thing I did see is that Diana did try to run after and try to help out as well, but Diana was held back also because, she is a woman. She looks like a woman, even though, she's 15. So then we jump to the scene where the ladies are outside talking to Richard and the police, and they try to tell them what happened. However, they did say that it happened all so fast. And then we see that Tim pulled up and asked what happened. Karen tells everyone exactly what happened. And then classic Richard, being a jerk, asking Laura about dinner. He says, I don't suppose with all this going on you haven't been able to start dinner yet. And Karen just gets this look on her face like, I love you, Richard, but you're a menace. How dare you ask this right now? And then Laura just kind of laughs it off, like, oh, no, not yet, honey. And so then Laura, Richard, and Jason leave. And then, I want to say maybe Karen, I think Karen and Sid and Val and Gary goes into the Fairgate's house to talk about the situation. And then Ginger leaves to go to get dinner just to make sure that, just in case Kenny comes home early or doesn't come home. It's not late from coming home from work. And then they ask the cops about like what happened to the beach patrol, and they say budget cuts. They just don't have the funds to keep the patrol on the beach to keep this from happening. And that's to Diana to being supportive. And then we are at the Fairgates, and Karen is livid because it was directed at them. Like, they circled around them. And then, and Sid is just like, well, you guys were probably the prettiest girls on the beach. And Karen was like, don't make a joke, but even if we were, that doesn't give it the right to. Even if we were the prettiest girls on the beach, it doesn't give them the right to do what they did. And then Sid goes, well, I'm going to turn out the light in the garage. And then and upstairs. And here's Diana practicing for an audition. And then, so Karen tries to give, and this is where I think that Karen, the character, and Michelle, the actress, kind of blends in because Karen does give um, Diana some advice. But again, I think this is where they actually put a lot of what the actual actors have gone through into the episodes and to help guide the characters. And I think that that's pretty cool. And so she does show Diana how like what exactly the scene calls for, and then they go into and then she tries to do the scene after Karen moves. Um, and then we are at the beach again, and then they decide not to go so close to the ocean that they decide to stay back. And then as they were getting ready, turning on the radio, then the gang comes back again and circles them, and the ladies can't get out. Like they're just telling them to stop, stop, stop. They can't get out. They can't get out of the circle, and then so they're just trying to fend them off and ask them to stop. And then somehow, and I'm not exactly sure how, and I can't tell, that Karen gets pulled down. I don't know if she's grabbed by one of the guys. And then Michael sees this and he runs after the guys, and then he gets hurt, which requires stitches. And then the gang leaves after that because they realize, uh-oh, I think something bad happened to her, and we need to get out of here. And then, and then we are at the hospital, um, and then Sid pulls up and asks if they are all okay. And Karen says, yeah, we're okay, but, Michael has to have stitches and all this stuff. And so he comes back out. He has 6 stitches. And then as they get into the car and they're driving away, Michael says that he doesn't want to go out because the last time he got stitches, he got a lollipop. And this time he doesn't get a lollipop and he wants a lollipop. I thought that was a cute add-on to the scene. And then Karen says there's nothing she can do, and it scares her. And it says it's almost like her being in a situation where what we talked about and 2 episodes ago. It's like her being feeling like that, like, she was being attacked in a way that she wanted to be attacked, or touched in the way she wanted to be touched. And then at that point, Sid, and again, this is kind of like where Sid becomes a little bit more, he kind of goes backwards, but then he kind of comes forwards again. He says, let the police handle it. And then all of a sudden, that's when Michael says, hey, Mom, look. So then they see the guy who's at a gas station, and so Sid pulls up and sees the guy walking into the bathroom. He uses his car, blocks the bathroom door, and tells Karen to get out and call the police. And then Sid goes after the other guy and kind of holds him there until the police come. And then the guy that hit Michael got arrested, but the other guy did not because Karen says that, there's nothing that she can accuse him of at this point. So he is let go by the police. And then because Karen is proud of him, and that's where I think Karen has a moral compass at this point, because there's nothing that she can do to arrest that guy for. And then because Karen is proud of Sid, she kisses him. And I think this is one of the few times that we actually see them kiss, even in season 2. I don't think we got a lot of the connection there. So this is one of the few times that we do see this. And then they get in the car, and the other guy is watching. So it's almost like I think the other guy is going to end up following them, but we don't know that for sure. But somehow we think they are. So they leave. The other guy is following them, and then we're back at the Fairview's house. And Michael is getting a lot of attention by neighbors and family of the cul-de-sac. And then Kenny is surprised that Richard says that the guy will get 30 days. Um, and then, 30 days in jail just for whatever happened, you know. Um, so she's kind of upset about that. Um, and then this part is a little nugget. Karen calls Diana Cookie twice in this episode. The first time is when Diana comes down and asks for a ride to her audition, and Karen goes, sure, Cookie. Now, this will play in season 4, and we'll get there, but yes, this is when Karen calls Diana Cookie, and and we'll discuss that when we get to season 4. Um, and then Diana says that Group will drive her home afterwards, and then Diana comes up behind Michael and kisses him and says, I'm so proud of you. And then as Karen is driving Diana to her audition, Karen is worried because there's something that looks like a motorcycle following them, but Diana goes, no, it's just a moped. Um, jump in anywhere, co-host in the background. Just a minute. Snowball? Hey, you okay? Hot for Snowball, too. It's just in front of the dressers. It's just like, oh. I feel Kenny and Ginger are leaving. And situation. And then Karen arrives back home, and the other guy that was not arrested walks up to her and scares her. Howard says that he just wants to talk to her, and she says, you better leave, I'm gonna call the police. And he calls, hey, Snowball. Yeah, he's okay. Co-host in the background. It's just, I don't know if it's hot where you're at, but it's just so hot here. Oh right. Let's see. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. 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 Okay, so I'm kind of gonna go back a little bit. So I'm gonna go to the part to where I talk about Karen arrives home, and the guy walks up to her, and he says that he just wants. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. Walks up to her, and he just wants to talk to her. Karen tells him to leave, and so, or she's gonna call the police, and then she also calls out for Sid, and then Sid comes out and he wants, and then the guy says that he wants the charges dropped, and then they basically will leave town. Um, he says that the guys will be looking for them, the ones that have already left town. However, they will come back looking for their other guys. Um, Karen is scared. However, she doesn't want to drop the charges because Michael does ask if Karen's going to drop the charges, and she said, not a chance. I love that. She says it and then she tickles him. Am I breaking in and out? Co-host in the background, is it coming in loud and clear? Um, and then the next scene that we see is we see the garbage being picked up. However, at this time we also see the gang pull up, and then they just trash the cul-de-sac. They trash it by knocking down the trash cans, just throwing them all over the yard and all over the cul-de-sac. It was just a mess. And then you see Gary tried to come out and stop them. Laura tries to come out. They egg Richard's car. It's just a hot mess and mess with lawns. And then Richard tells Laura to come back inside. And then they all leave. Sid comes out when he tells Karen to go back inside. However, Karen doesn't go back inside. And then we see that after they leave, Karen walks up to Sid, and she sees that, and you can tell that she is scared. And then the police are at the fairgates, and they tell Karen and Sid and the other neighbors that are there. I'm not exactly sure who's all there, if it's just Gary and Val or if it's everyone. But the police are at the fairgates, and they said that they will have patrols out there watching them. And then, but the police officer says that the population has doubled since, over the last year or so. And also, Richard is there. And then this is when Richard said that, Karen needs to drop the charges, but it is not taken well by everyone. Like, basically, and it's basically saying that, okay, not taken well by everyone. And then Gary makes a joke that, Richard, after Richard leaves, Gary makes a joke that Richard is only looking out for Richard and not anybody else. And then Karen sends the kids upstairs to get ready for school. She says business as usual. And then this is when that the four adults start talking about some situation to where Val is saying that is glad that Karen is not giving in. And then Val says that the police are not always on, their side. And then Sid and Karen are asking her, like, why? Like, what are you talking about? And this is when Val really opens up about the situation with Lucy and how, after Val left the ranch, JR had his boys come after him, follow her all the way to Tennessee, and that's when they took Lucy from them. So that kind of ties in the full circle moment with the episode with the women, and Val finally opens up about what really happened with Lucy. And the fact that the police didn't help her, and that Val is giving Karen 1000% support, and Karen smiles and says, "So do I." And I love this because the way that she says this is not, I don't think it's Karen saying it, I think it's Michelle saying it. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And you can tell that the bond is real um, between Karen and Val. And then we're in Richard and Laura's bedroom, and they're talking about what happened with Michael. And Richard is only concerned about himself. And Laura asked, "Well, what if it was their son?" And he said it wasn't. So therefore, Richard really doesn't care, and doesn't really care about Michael and what happened to him. Which I think is a pretty horrible thing to think about. Like, you guys are friends with them, and you're neighbors. You should care about what happened to them. Um, and then we see that Val and Karen are at the grocery store, and then the guy that didn't get arrested showed up again, takes a bite of the apple, and says it's not worth enough. And I think that this is when he gives a signal to two of his co-gang members, if you will, where the ladies on motorcycle and Karen and Val get into the car, and then they drive off, and as they're driving off, so does the guy on the motorcycle, and I think he gives a signal to two of his riders, and then they come up beside the car and starts kicking on both sides of the vehicle to get them to pull over. And this goes on for a while, so I'm not gonna. There's really not a lot to talk about other than the fact that it kind of stops when there's a police car, and then the ladies pull off, and then the police go after them. Um, and then I'm almost done with this episode. I think I got a little bit more. And then when Karen and Val pulls up, there's another motorcycle in the cul-de-sac, and then Karen tells Val to get inside her house because she doesn't want Val to go home alone. And again, I think this is where that relationship is really showing that Karen is really looking out for Val. And then Karen gets a phone call, and then a couple of phone calls, or they won't get off the line. And then Karen walks out, gets in her car, and tries to leave, but then she realizes that she can't. She realizes that her air was left out. The air was left out of her tires, Karen's tires, and then the guy was letting out the air in Val's tires. And so then Laura goes up to Karen's door, knocks on it, and tells her what happened. And then Karen tells Laura, "Go to your house, call the police, call Gary and Sid, and tell them to get home. Don't ask any questions." And so then Karen goes back into the house, and then Val asks Karen what happened. And Karen is mad, you can tell. And so at this point, Karen and Val are talking about it, and then all of a sudden we hear crashing from the boys outside, and it showed that the boys slipped on an oil spill while riding their bikes. And Karen asks if they're okay, and they're like, "Yeah, we're fine." And then the boys start to pick up their bikes, and Karen says, "Leave them," because it's probably a part of a crime scene. And so therefore, at this point, Karen is not okay because Val walks up behind her. You can see it on her face that Karen is not okay. And this is where I got chilled, and that my high sensitivity person was in effect, to where like I could almost feel Karen's emotions in the scenes. And I really took on her emotions. And then I just got chills. Like I couldn't, it's one of those things where I wanted to watch it again just to be sure that that's what I was feeling, and it was. So then the next scene is we see Karen and Richard walking out of the police station, and Karen does drop the charges. However, she knows it's not the right thing to do. And Richard is just kind of, telling her, this is the right thing to do. And then they see the guy who Karen didn't lock up um, outside the police station, and she tells him that, that she did drop the charge and that his friend is getting his belongings to come back out. And then as they are standing by Richard's car, Karen just looks at him, and then as the guy that Karen locked up walked out, the other guy basically encourages Karen, or that, not Karen, but encourages him to go after Karen because she kept him locked up for 2 days, and that he should be mad about it. So I think that was not a good thing. To go after. So it's not over. Like we thought it was over, but it's not going to be over. We are then back at the fairgrounds with the Newlands with Val and Gary, and then they were talking about how quickly the tires would change. And Karen goes, well, it pays to have 2 people who work at the dealership that can change 12 tires so quickly. And I have to do the math. Is that 12 tires? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, no, I guess it is 12 tires. I just had to count that out. So then as they're talking, we heard a motorcycle outside the house, and they all thought that was the group members coming back, but it was actually the police doing a patrol. And then, so Sid goes out, checks on it, and then comes back in and tells them that it's a cop. And then Sid tells him that he's not sure if it's over. And then we see Eric come. Then we see Eric come downstairs, and he wants to go to a friend's house to study, but Sid is like, no, and Eric is like, well, it's just around the corner. And he was like, no, I don't want you going out tonight. It's not a good night. I just want everyone. And Karen agrees, Karen says that, they kind of want a quiet night. And then Gary and Sid talks about the advertising of the KnotsLanding Motors, and that's when Sid tells Gary that he wants him to take over the advertisement. And then I think this is kind of where the trouble starts a little bit between Gary and Sid. He's getting a little bit more responsibility. And then Diana comes downstairs and says that she had a rehearsal and that she got the first reading part. And Karen tells Diana sorry, and Gary goes, well, why sorry? Are we missing something? And Karen looks over at Gary and says, it's a long story. It's a long story. And then Sid tells Diana that she doesn't want her to go out, and that it is. And then Diana says that they will replace her. And Karen agrees with Diana and encourages Sid to let her go. And then Sid lets her go, but with conditions that she has to come home right away. Val and Gary get ready to leave the fairgrounds. And then, and Diana had a ride to the rehearsal. So as Gary and Val were getting ready to leave the fairgrounds, Diana's ride is back, and they pull up and they say that, whoever the gang took Diana, and then Sid and Gary goes and headed to the beach. Then Sid gets in his car, drives off. Gary gets into his car, drives off. Kenny pulls up and asks what's going on, and Val goes, it's Diana, they took Diana. And so then Kenny drives off. And then we see that Diana is at the beach with the gang. Then a fight breaks out, and then we see Sid break out, attacks the guys. And then we see that Gary comes flying by flying them for backup, and then because Sid pulled Diana away, she ends up being safe. And then I put down because of Gary, I said, don't mess with Texas. Because, he was fighting. And then we see that Kenny arrives as backup. And then all of a sudden, I don't know where Richard came from. He just came out of the blue. Maybe he got a ride with Kenny. And he was trying to get someone. And then Karen and the cops pull up. And then the fight ends, and Richard tells everyone what the charges are, and then Sid starts to say that he feels good about what happened, and then everyone, all the guys say, "Oh yeah, I feel good too. I feel wonderful. I feel great that I was able to protect everyone." So that's that episode. Um, I don't think that there's really a lot to break down in this episode. I think it's very self-explanatory. There was a lot that happened in that episode, um, but there really wasn't a psychology of it all in this episode. Co-host in the background, what do you think? Do you think that there was? I don't think there's a lot for me to break down in this episode, and that maybe when I pull up the scene here in a minute, but I don't really think so. I think that it really stands out on its own. There's crime that happened. And again, I think this is when the more intense scenes um, started from for Matt's Landing, because we'll see the scene come in a little bit stronger. But I think that you know co-host in the background. Is there anything else that I need to add for this episode? I just think that it's just it's very self-explanatory, and I think that this is a good episode to where they start bringing in the more intense scenes. I don't know if I'm correct on that or not, but please correct me if I'm wrong on this. Okay, all good. Okay. Now, sorry, my phone is getting so hot that it's not charging correctly. So, um, so if the co-host in the background doesn't have anything to add, I'm just gonna go into playing the scene that I have pulled up for them. Um, okay, so this scene is one of my favorite scenes from this episode. This really shows, I think, the relationship again with Val and Karen. And again, this is in accordance with YouTube fair news policy. Oh, what? Oh, hold on. Let me turn up the volume. I guess I gotta turn up the volume, huh? Alright, so let me go back.
Garbage on his car.
Okay, go.
Well, let's go, kids. Upstairs.
Okay.
He thinks I should give in.
Richard only thinks about what's best for Richard. I think he's...
I love that. That's so cool, because that just sums up Richard's character at this point in this series. And again, this is under YouTube service policies.
worried about the garbage on his car.
Well, let's go, kids. Upstairs, get ready for school, business as usual. Let's go. Move it.
What a way to get the kids out of the room so the adults could talk. LOL. And again, this is in accordance with YouTube service policies.
I'm not looking at this as a cause.
I know you're not, honey. I'd be the first one to say that if I thought you were.
And again, Karen is very active in the community settings. So when she says that she's not looking at this as a cause, it's the fact that, she's afraid that others would tell her, this is a cause, but she's not looking at it this way. She's looking at it, the fact that her son was hurt and that attacked and that, he needed stitches, and all that good stuff. So I think that's where that comes from. Is a pain of a mother. It's a pain of a mother seeing that her child has been hurt, and it was during on her watch. So again, co-host in the background, just tell me if I'm wrong in that aspect of it, but I think that's what I see there. And again, this is in accordance with YouTube service policy.
I know it's hard on everybody, and the kids.
It'd be a lot tougher on the kids if they saw us giving in to those thugs.
I'm glad you won't give in, Karen.
So, I did not catch this and I rewatched this, but the way that Sid said folks, it sounds like he's saying something else. And if you know, you know, if you think about it, co-host in the background, I don't know if you heard that, if you can hear that in his voice, but when he says folks, it almost comes out as something else. But that's just me. So if you know, you know. If you can catch it, maybe it was a Freudian slip that maybe wasn't really a Freudian slip. And so you get it. So did it sound like that? Because it did to me. Anyway, so he did say folks. He didn't say the other word. Just saying. Okay, and again, this is in accordance with YouTube service policy.
I mean, maybe the police can't do it all right off, but at least they're on your side, and that's something.
Well, of course they're on our side.
Well, they're not always.
What do you mean by that, Val?
Well, just that they're not always on your side. Oh, nothing.
When I was watching this episode to recap it, I didn't realize like how concerned Sid was with what Val was trying to say, and the fact that, you know, he did make her feel comfortable and Garen too to talk about what happened with Musu. So I didn't see that. So maybe he does get a little bit more redeeming qualities in this episode. Just saying. So again, this is in accordance with YouTube service policies.
I shouldn't be talking about this.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Well, when Gary and me was married the first time, 17 years ago, when we split up, I left the Ewan Ranch with our daughter, Lucy. And Gary's brother, J.R., sent some mean old boys after me to get Lucy back. And they followed us all the way to Tennessee.
The fact that J.R.'s boys followed her all the way to Tennessee to get Lucy back, oh, that just breaks my heart. Like, who would do that? Just so that they could keep... It's not like, I'm sure, like, once Lucy became older, it's not like, I don't think that Val would have kept her away from her family. But my goodness, why go after her like that? That's just scary in and of itself. But that's just me. And you can see the look of concern on Sid's face if you go back and watch. And again, this is in with YouTube service policy. In accordance with YouTube service policy.
And they took her. So I went back after her. When I got back to Texas, those old boys wouldn't let me near the ranch. So I went to the sheriff's office.
The law was pretty tight with my family.
So the fact, and I think that this is kind of still what we're seeing in today's world, that if, you know, the laws should be objective. However, a lot of times they're subjective, and it's all about politics, and I'm not going to talk about politics, but that's what I'm seeing right now with the Nancy Guthrie case. I'm not going to turn this into a true crime channel, but I do see that there are some issues with the Nancy Guthrie case, and, you know, this kind of talks about that and how, you know, law enforcement can either help shape an investigation or harm an investigation. And I think right here, if you have plenty of money, it's going to harm the investigation. They're not going to want to, you know, take care of people. But that's just me. That's just what I've been seeing. So, I don't know. Co-host in the background, what do you think? That kind of, I get it that there's no breakdown, but once I get these things going, it's like, oh, wait, yes, there is. So I'm so sorry, but yeah, so I do see a lot of that in today's society, and even with maybe a little bit with the Brian Kohlberger case, like there was a lot going on with that case as well, and again, it's all about what the prosecution had, what the police have, and who everyone is connected to, and all that good stuff. But again, I'm not going to turn this into politics or true crime, but I am just talking about the relatedness of it all. So, and again, this is in accordance with the Truth Fairness policy.
And I can't tell you what that was like, knowing that anything at all could be done to me.
Thanks, co-host in the background. I appreciate that. So the fact that was so up in arms about this even today is that she was harmed by all this, and I think that whatever comes out of the Nancy Guthrie case, Savannah is going to carry this with her, no matter what happens, and and I did hear that one of her family members did tell Savannah Guthrie that this is because of her, and so for them to say that, her own family members to say that about it, that I just don't like that. And again, when I hear about the Nancy Guthrie case, my emotions take over, so I kind of am staying away from it, but I do know I am seeing what's going on through little clips here and there. But again, this is not a true crime channel. I'm just relating it to today's times. So, is that okay, co-host in the background? And I'm not linking it to political or to crime, am I? Because that's not what I want this to do. But I do realize that with NotsLanding and Dallas, there are going to be some times where they're going to overlap and talking about true crime and politics. But I'm not saying one way or the other. But it's just how the episodes are. Oh, so anyways. Again, this is with the co-host, not with the co-host in the background, but in accordance with YouTube's terms, in accordance with YouTube's fair use policies.
And there wasn't nothing the police would do about it, because there wasn't any difference between those mean old boys and the police. At least here, there is a difference, and I mean, I know that this is hard on you, Karen, but I think that you just gotta stick to your guns.
Okay, this is the build up to the scene that I was just talking about. And that's how I loved how Michelle says this, because it's almost like the way it's Michelle, I think it's the actor coming out. I don't think it's Karen, because you can kind of tell. Hold on. Okay, so you can kind of tell that maybe this might be Michelle coming out a little bit, because I can also tell that this is a voice that she used in the Big Dreams and Broken Hearts movie, and I think also in The No One Would Listen To. I think this is her voice, but this is one of my favorite Karen moments of all time. So, and again, the scene is almost over, but this is in accordance with YouTube's fair use policy. Oh, wait. I'm going to wait a second because I hear my roommate coming down the stairs. I don't want to have that in the background while this is playing. Okay, so this is in accordance with YouTube's terms, in accordance with YouTube's fair use policies.
So do I.
I'm going to play that again. I'm going to turn this up just a little bit because I think she says it kind of softly. So I'm going to turn it up a little bit, and then that way you guys can hear it. Go right there. Go back.
At least here, there is a difference. And I mean, I know that this is hard on you, Karen, but I think that you just gotta stick to your guns.
So do I.
So, co-host in the background, did you hear that? Did you see what I'm saying about how I think that that's more of Michelle coming out as opposed to Karen. I think that that's the actor coming out and being herself instead of Karen, because I think that the actor really cares about the situation that's going on in the cul-de-sac and in the show. She's really looking after that. So, um, anyways, so but did you see that? That part, do you think that that sounds more like MicheleLee than it did Karen co-host in the background? So again, just a little housekeeping issues. I'm gonna end the video here. I'm not end up waiting for to see if I get a response from co-host in the background. I'm not talking to myself. I do have a co-host. She is in chat. She's also on Facebook Messenger. So if you hear me, she's helping with the dialogue. I do see that. No, it is myself. I do see that other YouTubers do this as well, especially there is the psychic sleuth that I follow. She sometimes has someone actually on screen that co-hosts with her, but I decided not to do that because I don't want to put anyone on the spot. So she's just in the background or on chat or on Facebook Messenger. And then also, don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video out. I don't think I have the hype button yet because I'm not monetized. I don't know if I will get monetized. I would love to, but I'm not monetized yet. That's not my goal. My goal is to bring more of a. I have seen, since I've been doing these reviews, I have seen a couple of other YouTubers that have reviews on this, but I think that mine are a little bit more in depth. I bring a psychoanalysis to it with my background in social work and also with my background in working with a women's shelter and within a hospital setting. I also worked with, just to give you a little bit of my background, I also worked with community mental health agencies. So I'm well versed in a lot of this. And I like to psychoanalyze everything, a lot of things. And so with this series, I just saw the opportunity to do that. So I just bring a little bit more of the psychoanalysis of it all. And I hope that you guys enjoy it. And again, this isn't, for anything other than to bring that aspect to KnotsLanding, and to do a recap of it. And again, this is, what are you laughing at? What are you laughing at? Cole was in the background. Just to bring some light into all of this. Hold on. Okay. I just wanted to ask her what she thinks is funny. Come on. Jesus, goodness gracious. So I'm not seeing I'm seeing my live chat, but I'm not seeing comments in my comment section. So if you could, come to the video, watch it, leave a comment. I would love to interact with you guys. And if you have any good thoughts of where I could go with this, and out to a couple of people that maybe I could talk with them. Guess what they okay. Okay, I just wanted to, and she was laughing at me and what I was saying. And I think my screen is freezing up again, so I'm just gonna let it go for a minute. I'm not sure why my thing is buffering. It's crazy. Okay, I'm not gonna type it right now. Anyways, So is the psychoanalysis of it all is for me on this episode. So tomorrow we will do episodes, which is episode 7. So we will do episode 8 and 9, and I think let me go to 2 because I want to see how many episodes are in season 1. So we'll do episode 8 as a very special episode. And then we have episode 9. Okay, and then yeah. So these next couple of episodes are gonna have a lot more meat to them. So I'm not gonna go into what they are because no, that is tomorrow night. That's tomorrow night. Tomorrow. Today's Tuesday, honey. That's tomorrow. Tomorrow. Sorry, I know my singing voice is not that great, so I'll do this. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, no by and by. Okay. I just had to do that. Oh, why the angry face? Is it because of my singing? Sorry. Yeah, no, tomorrow, I haven't even watched it yet, and that's going to take me a little bit to get to the notes. Oh, that. Yes. That's why I need to watch it tonight. Later today. I got to close out. It's the end of the month, so I have to close out the medical billing stuff, so I got to do that first, and then, it's okay. No worries. No issues. I have to close out the end of the month and make sure that all the payments are in the system so that we can send out invoices to our providers. We only have 3 providers, but I just have to make sure that all the payments are in the system. So anyway, so there is 13 episodes of season 1. So it looks like, let's see, tomorrow, Thursday. So by the end of the week, we'll be done with season 1. How cool is that? Co-host in the background, we will be done with season 1 by Friday. How cool is that? And then season 2 has 1, 2. Season 2 has 18 episodes, so we'll probably do so we'll probably start out on Monday. No, I'm sorry, on Sunday with season. Oh, you know what? I didn't realize. Are you gonna do available on the 4th of July? I don't know what your plans are, because we might skip that day if they're gonna be busy. But anyway, so we have 18 episodes in season 2, so that might be like a week and a day or so, a week and maybe 2 days. Because I think what I'm gonna do. Let me see. I have to do season 2. Okay, thank you. I will have to do season 2 episodes 1 and 2 together. And then what I might do is okay. And what I might do is episode 3 separate, and then we'll go back into doing 2 episodes just because it's an even number of episodes. Okay. It's an even number of episodes of season 2. So I think that's what I'm gonna have to do. I can't just do episode 1 of season 2 because it's a part 1 and part 2. So I'm not sure when is the 4th of July. Is it Saturday or Sunday? I'm not sure. And I don't know if I will do one on the 4th of July just because I may or may not. I may do something else. Let me see. Okay, so the 4th is on Saturday. So we'll be on to season 2 by Saturday. But yeah, let me know what your plans are. And then maybe we'll just skip Saturday and then we'll just go. Or I don't know if they're going to be available on the 5th, but we'll skip Saturday for sure if you are busy. And then we'll just roll right into season 2, episodes 1 and 2. And then I'll do episode 3 by itself. And then we'll just go back into doing 2 at a time. Just the way that the season is running right now. So, anyway, so I know just a lot of the background information that we're just coming up with, and you guys are aware of what's going on. Oh wow, this is almost 2.5 hours long. Crazy. Wow. I do enjoy this because I do like to get my voice moving because I don't really do a lot of talking. So this helps with my voice as well. And it also helps with my speech to try and improve my speech and to see where I need to improve and everything like that. So anyway, so don't forget to like, subscribe, share it out. And also, don't forget in the description box below, we have the We're Not Done Yet podcast. Thank you, co-host in the background. I have the We're Not Done Yet podcast along with today's episode that they just released. And then also we have the CV Circle YouTube channel linked. And then I will also have the Gossip Rumor and Innuendo channel linked as well because I think that I do some of Kathy's sayings and I want her to get recognition for it because I don't want her to think that I'm just taking her sayings and not giving her credit. So I want to give her credit for that because, I do say the tubes of you and done talk my throat dry. And then also I did mention her channel and what she does on the interwebs. So, and she is funny. I think that you guys will like her. So if you like true crime, you like to have a hilarious. She's FA2S, not and then not FACK, not FAC2C, but FAQS. Something like that. I don't know. If you listen to some of her lives, her videos, you'll get it. Anyway, so I hope you guys have a great day. Go check out those channels. I will put the Gossip Rumor and the New Window channel in the description box once I end the live. And comment. Please comment. Co-host in the background, if you can also leave a comment on the video that if you don't know how to do that, I can guide you offline. That might help as well. So I would love to hear any feedback. I would love to interact with any of you. So just feel free, and then I will be sharing this out onto some of the Facebook groups that I belong to. So, anyways, I hope you guys have a great day, and if I don't talk to you, have a great 4th of July, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye!